Nobody likes saying it out loud, but you've probably felt it. Maybe not in words, maybe more like a pressure in the chest, or a strange tiredness that shows up when life keeps moving, as if everything is normal while something inside you knows it isn't. A lot of people walk around pretending the world is fair, warm, and secretly arranged for human comfort. But when you look a little closer, really look, you start noticing something colder underneath. Suffering isn't rare here. Loss isn't an interruption. Confusion isn't some mistake in the system. Cruelty is woven into the fabric, not always in dramatic ways either. Sometimes cruelty looks like being forced to keep going when your spirit is already bruised. Sometimes it looks like watching good hearts break, while emptier people keep smiling and winning. And maybe the hardest part is not even the pain itself. Maybe the hardest part is how quickly the world asks you to move on from it. Most people can feel that harshness, but they don't want to admit it. And yes, that makes sense. Admitting the world is cruel can feel like opening a door you were never supposed to open, because once you see it, you can't fully unsee it. All the polished stories begin to crack. All the easy slogans start sounding thin. Suddenly the old promises don't land the same. Work hard and everything will make sense. Be good and life will be good back. Stay hopeful and the universe will reward you. Nice ideas, comforting too. But reality keeps interrupting them. A child suffers. A kind person gets discarded. A soul full of life is crushed under forces it never asked for. And the silence that follows those moments can feel unbearable, almost insulting, because there is no grand explanation rising from the sky to make it all make sense. Still, something in you keeps asking for meaning. That's part of the tension. Human beings aren't built like stones. You don't just experience pain, you want to know why it's here. You want to know what it means. You want to know whether any of it leads anywhere. That hunger is deep, ancient, almost sacred in its own way. But the world doesn't answer cleanly. It just stares back, blank, indifferent, a locked door with no handle. And that's where a lot of people split in two. One part still longs for a final answer, some great hidden purpose, some invisible hand that ties every wound together into a neat lesson. Another part knows life doesn't usually work like that. So people do what people have always done. They reach for distractions, borrowed beliefs, second-hand certainty, anything to cover the raw nerve of not knowing. Yet something stronger happens when the veil falls and you stop begging reality to become softer than it is. Strange thing, really. The moment you stop asking the world to be gentle, you begin seeing it more clearly. Not because life becomes nicer, it doesn't, but because illusion loses its grip. A person who sees the cruelty of existence without dressing it up becomes harder to manipulate, harder to sedate with fantasies, harder to control with promises of future peace that never arrive. A hard truth starts forming here. The world may be cruel, but there is a different kind of suffering in pretending it isn't. One wound comes from reality itself. The other comes from lying to your own soul. And as painful as the first one is, the second has a way of hollowing a person out from the inside. Once that truth begins to settle in, another realization follows right behind it. Most people aren't living, they're escaping. Not always in obvious ways. Escape can look respectable. It can wear a suit, quote something spiritual, smile on command, talk about gratitude, success, destiny, healing. Underneath, though, there's often panic. Panic at the thought that maybe life doesn't come with a neat script. Panic at the thought that no system, no ritual, no borrowed philosophy can fully protect a person from loss, randomness, humiliation, aging, death. So people cling to things, ideas, identities, moral performances, group beliefs, anything that saves them from sitting face to face with the naked uncertainty of being alive. In that sense, cruelty doesn't only come from the world out there, it also comes from the stories people build so they don't have to face what's real. And you can see what that does to a person. A soul begins to trade honesty for comfort. A human being starts accepting explanations, not because they're true, but because they feel safer than the void. Something inside goes numb, Not dead exactly, more like sedated, like a bird kept indoors so long it forgets the sky was ever an option. Plenty of people call that peace, but it isn't peace. It's surrender disguised as certainty. Real peace has air in it. Real peace can breathe around unanswered questions. A sedated life can't. It needs constant reassurance, constant structure, constant confirmation that the chosen illusion still holds. Once that illusion cracks, fear rushes in. So the performance continues. Smile. Repeat the lines. Act like everything has a hidden plan. Keep the machine running. Then there's the opposite response, the one that doesn't dress pain up at all. Some people look at the indifference of existence and feel crushed by it. They don't take refuge in pretty stories. They just feel the weight, fully, rawly. A day starts to resemble a long hallway with no door at the end. Ordinary pleasures lose color. Human routines begin to feel eerie, almost theatrical, as if everyone is playing serious roles in a play that leads nowhere. And yes, that perception isn't madness. A lot of it is lucidity. A lot of it is what happens when a person sees how much of society runs on pretense. Everyone pretending their role is ultimate. Everyone acting as if their busyness cancels mortality. Everyone performing importance in a universe that stays silent, no matter how loudly humans explain themselves. A brutal sight, yes, but also a strangely clarifying one. Clarity like that can turn a person bitter, or it can turn a person real. That's the turning point. Not optimism, not despair. Something more mature than both. A willingness to remain awake without running. A willingness to stop decorating the prison walls and finally admit there is pain here, absurdity here, cruelty here. Once that happens, your relationship with life changes. You stop expecting it to justify itself. You stop demanding that every hurt come wrapped in a lesson. You stop asking why the storm is a storm. And from there, quietly, almost invisibly, something powerful begins to grow. Not innocence. Innocence doesn't survive long in this world. What grows instead is a kind of inner steadiness, a deeper honesty, a refusal to become one of the walking dead, alive in body, absent in spirit, surviving on comforting lies. So what remains when the world has been seen clearly, when the softness of illusion is gone, when you no longer expect life to hand you a clean reason for every wound? More remains than people think. Cruelty may be real, but so is consciousness, so is presence, so is the strange dignity of a person who refuses to lie to themselves just to feel safe. There's something almost rebellious about that. In a world that rewards numbness, staying inwardly awake is its own form of quiet defiance. Not loud, not theatrical, more like a candle in a storm that keeps burning without needing applause. A person like that may still grieve, still ache, still feel the bite of life's indifference, but they are no longer bargaining with reality. And that changes everything. Because once you stop begging existence to be something it has never promised to be, you become available to the only life that is actually here. Some people try to survive cruelty by chasing endless pleasure. Others try to outrun it through achievement, status, conquest, romance, noise. And for a while, sure, those things can feel like victories, brief flashes, a little warmth in the dark. There's nothing wrong with that. Human beings are made of appetite as much as thought. You're allowed to savor what is beautiful, what is sensual, what is alive in the moment. A laugh, a touch, a piece of music that seems to know your name, a conversation that cracks something open in you, a sunset that feels almost too tender for this world. None of those things solve existence, but maybe they were never supposed to. Maybe their value is exactly in their fleetingness. A flower doesn't fail because it dies. Fire doesn't become meaningless because it burns out. Some things are precious because they don't stay. Another kind of person answers cruelty with action, not because action will save the world forever. It won't. Time swallows every empire, every movement, every monument, every name. Even so, there is something fierce and alive in choosing to engage, to love despite fragility, to create despite impermanence, to fight for something even while knowing nothing earthly lasts. Not because victory is guaranteed, but because intensity itself becomes part of being fully alive. Think of a stage actor pouring heart and body into a performance that vanishes the same night. No eternal record, no guarantee of legacy, just presence, just the living flame of now. In a similar way, a human being can inhabit this brief life without pretending permanence is coming later to justify it. A rare kind of freedom lives there, the freedom of no longer needing forever in order to honor what is real for one honest moment. And maybe that's where the answer begins, though not in the tidy way people want answers. A cruel world does not erase the possibility of a meaningful inner stance. Not a universal formula, not a moral instruction manual, something subtler, more personal, more alive. One person meets the absurd through love, another through art, another through endurance, another through laughter sharp enough to cut through falsehood, another through simple, direct presence, washing a cup, looking at the sky, saying yes to one more day without pretending to understand the whole design. Every path is different because every soul carries a different shape of fire. What matters is not choosing the correct script. What matters is refusing to abandon your aliveness just because the world refused to explain itself.